Unexpected hero, how a quiet janitor's amazing Mandarin correction revealed transformative truths. Tom swept the corridor of the university, the rhythmic scraping of the broom matching the quickened pace of his thoughts. 58 years old and still cleaning up after others, he found solace in this work. It grounded him, reminded him that hard work meant something. But lately, whispers echoed through the halls. The arrival of Dr. Chen, a new professor, was stirring up an undercurrent of tension. Tom didn't want to rethink his place in this bustling academic world, but the constant mockery and disdain directed at Dr. Chen, a brilliant mind, left a bitter taste in his mouth. As he finished cleaning a classroom, he overheard a student snickering, mispronouncing a key Mandarin term during Dr. Chen's lecture just a few doors down. The dismissiveness in her voice was a punch to Tom's gut. Words meant something, he realized. They carried a world of emotions, of respect, or the lack thereof. He hesitated, debating if he should step in. Could he solve anything by speaking up? Did a janitor have the right to correct a student in this university, especially when that student was cushioned by the misconceptions of youth? Sweat dripped from his brow, racing thoughts swirling within him. He had always kept his talent for languages a secret, tucked away beneath the layers of his identity. A janitor, that's who he was. The carefully built life for his family sat like a heavy weight on his shoulders, a weight that often pressed him into silence. Could stepping forward really change anything? Or would it only draw unwanted attention, spotlighting him in ways he never desired? He clenched his broom tighter, wishing for clarity as each day dragged him deeper into this moral quagmire. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Tom stood at the crossroads of self-doubt and determination. The tension in the air was palpable as he recalled the faces of the students, the side glances of his co-workers. What if he misstepped? The fear constricted around him, the pressure of their gazes, their whispers, made his heart race. But this wasn't just about him. It was about Dr. Chen, thrown into an environment that barely recognized his worth. As Tom's mind spun in circles, he could see through Dr. Chen's tired eyes, the yearning for respect doused in the negativity surrounding him. Would he be brave enough to forge a path? What if speaking out challenged his entire identity? The internal battle raged within him, as the urgency rippled across the landscape of his mind, grappling with the idea of worthiness. He felt as if he teetered on the edge of transformation, yet the pull of his past, the humility that had defined him, yanked him back. Would he step into the light, or retreat into the shadows, leaving Dr. Chen to navigate the storm alone? As the walls of his world closed in around him, Tom fought to find his voice, not only for himself but for a man who deserved recognition. Tom inhaled sharply, the air around him thick with the weight of possibility. He stood still, broom resting loosely in one hand, heart thudding like a drum signaling a battle yet to be fought. Doubts coiled tightly within him, battling against a growing conviction. Could he really step outside his preordained role? This moment surged with an electric urgency that he could no longer ignore. He glanced down the corridor, the sound of laughter ringing like distant clanging bells. The students, oblivious to the world shaking beneath their feet, continued to indulge in mockery. Was that who he wished to be, too? A bystander watching as injustice unfolded? A flicker of determination sparked inside him. Tom realized that words could resonate, that they could shift the very soil beneath one's feet, change perceptions and lay foundations for understanding. Dr. Chen deserved better than this. But stepping forward, he feared, might unravel the very fabric of his existence, challenging not just how others saw him but how he saw himself. With a sudden jolt of resolve, he made his way towards the lecture hall. Each step resonated with a mixture of fear and an insistent calling. A janitor wasn't just a title, it held his past, yes, but it could also embody the strength he'd never acknowledged. He had the power to change at least one narrative today. His heart raced as he approached the back of the room. The sight of Dr. Chen standing at the front, eyes flashing with frustrated passion as he tried to engage with a room that was largely indifferent, pushed Tom further. The professor was exposing knowledge like precious gems to people who treated them like rocks. He found his voice catching at the base of his throat, knowing that perhaps he could bridge the chasm of misunderstanding between the students and their new teacher. The lecture grew quiet as Tom cleared his throat, commanding attention with a hesitance that shook within him. He was met with a sea of surprised faces, some curious, others irritated. Briefly, the laughter quieted, replaced by a palpable tension. Dr. Chen turned, eyebrows lifting in cautious anticipation, uncertain of what this unexpected interruption might bring. "Excuse me," Tom began, his voice steadied by the rush of adrenaline. I couldn't help but notice he hesitated, thoughts racing. It felt like the world had contracted. What could he say to change perceptions amidst this resistance? An awkward silence hung heavily, charged with the anxiety of both uncertain students and an astounded professor. Tom pressed on, channeling the quiet resilience he'd accrued over years of sweeping floors and cleaning chalkboards. "Words can hurt or heal, and it seems some of you have forgotten that. Mandarin isn't just sounds, it's history, culture. Dr. Chen is teaching something important, please listen." With those words, Tom felt a shift, a small crack in the impenetrable barrier that had stifled voice. The appreciation reflected in Dr. Chen's eyes lent him confidence, igniting something he thought was long extinguished. Standing there, at the intersection of his past and the unknown future, Tom felt his identity reshape itself in real time. "What he teaches matters," he continued, emboldened now by his defiance. "Learning it with respect can open doors to understanding." The classroom atmosphere began to unravel, murmurs swept across the audience, a mingling of curiosity and hesitation. Tom took a breath, realizing that this was just the beginning. The battle was far from won, but seeds of change had been planted. Maybe this was his moment of truth, transforming his identity from mere janitor to advocate, from silence to voice. As the professor nodded in gratitude, Tom recognized a profound certainty: the paradox of silence was broken. Each step he took now dissolved layers of self-doubt, carving away at years of silence. But with this newfound voice arose more questions. Could he not only advocate but also become a student of his own craft? The spark ignited a new journey within him, one that promised either enlightenment or further obstacles ahead. He glanced back at Dr. Chen, whose face mirrored a potent mix of astonishment and admiration, and felt the pressure of the academic world pushing in. The tension swelled in Tom's chest, a looming presence whispering that this was just a taste of what lay ahead, moments filled with doubt or realization. He took another step into the unknown, ready to explore the ambitious possibilities of his late budding career. The classroom door hovered at the periphery of his vision, but beyond it, a different horizon awaited, one marked by empowerment and personal rediscovery. And yet, a looming question arose in his mind: could he sustain this momentum, transform not just his role, but his very essence, and inspire others along the way? The answer danced just out of reach, waiting like the breath of dawn, eager to reveal its secrets. The quiet reassurances Tom found in Dr. Chen's grateful nod started to dissolve amid the nagging tension still vibrating through the classroom. It was one thing to find his voice, it was another to maintain it in an environment laced with hostility and resistance. He stood there, vulnerability clashing with courage, wondering how to navigate the waters he had just dared to tread. As the lecture resumed, he considered the students staring back at him. Some leaned forward, intrigue recovering the faces that had once mirrored disdain. Others, those who thrived on the crowd's laughter, remained unmoved, their frowns heavy with indifference. It struck him that facing ridicule was only the first step in a much larger battle. This was an ongoing skirmish for validation, for dignity, not just for himself, but for those like Dr. Chen, who demanded respect for their craft. In the following days, Tom returned to his routine as janitor with a renewed sense of purpose. Each sweep of his broom now felt symbolic, not just of cleanliness, but of clearing pathways for conversations left unsaid, for revelations yet to unfold. But small victories in the lecture hall hung like fragile threads. Would others summon their own courage, or would he stand alone against the tide? He watched Dr. Chen continue to engage the students. Inspired by the professor's unwavering patience, Tom began lingering at the edges of lectures, absorbing more than just the content, a silent student gleaning wisdom in fragments. He leaned into the culture of learning, devouring each moment that drifted past. Yet, a persistent gnawing at the back of his mind queried whether his voice could lead to genuine understanding or if it was merely a momentary ripple. His grasp on language wasn't merely limited to broom handles and mops. During lectures, he found himself absorbing phrases and concepts, suddenly replaying them in real-time encounters with the students. Attempts at casual conversations were met with varying degrees of acceptance. There were glimmers of connection where snippets of Mandarin intertwined with laughter, but often the barriers clanged down. One afternoon, he found himself near a group of students. They were dismissively dissecting their latest assignment, snippets of Mandarin floating into the air. Intrigued, Tom summoned courage, stepping into their conversation. "You know, the beauty of language isn't just in translations. It's what those words invoke, the stories they carry, the connections they spark." They glanced at him, eyeing the janitor displacing himself from the periphery. A silence blanketed them. He could have retreated, but instead, he pressed on, buoyed not just by the reaction of a few eager faces, but by the realization that his journey was more profound than he understood. To his surprise, one student, inquisitively leaning forward, asked, "What's your story?" It was an innocent inquiry, innocent but laden with potential. The question flickered like a spark. Tom hesitated briefly, a line separating the familiar fear from a newfound urgency pulsating within him. This was it, a fork in the path. Would he retreat into silence, or share the tale of his journey, the transformative power of choosing to speak? Tom took a breath, the room holding its collective inhale. The students were now not merely a resistant force but an audience, as well. He began unveiling fragments of his own experience, every struggle with invisibility, the contemplations couched in nights of introspection, the transformations that had just begun. The weight of his struggles, heavy but liberating, shifted his focus from fear to resolve. With each sentence, he felt the walls drawn in around him begin to crack. And as he laid bare parts of himself, he sensed deep recognition across faces. Perhaps this was his moment, not just for himself, but to illuminate a pathway for others to follow. However, as the conversation deepened, he recognized the challenge. Would they listen with empathy, or retreat back into judgment? The stakes climbed, German students rapping topics on. Their perceptions around him, their rebuttals bold. But this was a negotiation of understanding, a potential mentorship blooming in the space he created. The confrontation hadn't just ignited curiosity but unearthed a wariness that had long simmered within him. Would he take the risks required for his voice to resound, or would he risk backtracking, finding solace in the shadows he'd known too well? In the rippling tension, he felt both fear and empowerment intertwining and surging. The next steps would either be a march toward change or a retreat back into obscurity. And the whisper of potential haunted him, promising new chapters yet to unfold, lingering just out of reach. The moment of truth arrived, and Tom stood ready. Would he embrace the unexpected hero within, or would the fear of stepping beyond the roles prescribed for him draw him back, silencing the advocate he was becoming? Tom felt the weight of the room they were watching, waiting for his next move. An invisible thread pulled him toward the students, yet the pull of retreat was equally strong, whispering doubts into his mind. Which Tom would prevail, the voice eager to break forth or the lingering shadow of silence? He straightened his posture and surveyed their expressions. Was that the flicker of curiosity in their eyes, or merely an echo of the derision that had once ruled their interactions? The risk of embarrassment loomed. Could he genuinely communicate something meaningful, or was the vulnerability he had begun to embrace an illusion soon to be shattered? Language, much like life, is fluid. It changes with every exchange, he began, feeling the words gather strength. For me, it's a means of connection, something I've only recently begun to appreciate. It's powerful, even transformative. He felt compelled to share, to envelop them in the tapestry of his narrative, not just fact, but essence. A hand raised among the students, breaking his flow. Are you saying that language changes how we view the world? Can you give an example? It was a challenge neatly wrapped in sincere curiosity. What he had stepped into could easily morph into a battleground of ideas, yet each question felt like a buoy as he held on to the fragile hope of connection. With his heart racing, he crafted an image from his past, a childhood where speaking Mandarin opened doors not just to communication but to insights about his own identity. When I learned to embrace my language, it revealed parts of myself I had hidden away. I saw the world painted not just in English, but vibrant with cultural nuances. When I speak Mandarin, I reconnect with my family's stories and traditions. Those words dance with emotion and history. You think your experiences matter to us? Another student challenged, skepticism sharpening the inquiry. The seductive currents of anger threatened to draw him back, but he couldn't allow himself to waver. There was an opportunity to redefine their perceptions, not just of him, but of language and respect. I know I might seem like only a janitor to many of you, Tom began, a slight tremor in his voice revealing the authenticity of his conflict, but I've fought just about my whole life to be taken seriously. My past, my culture, and my journey through silence have molded me. And now, I stand here, opening up not just for me, but to show how we can learn from one another. The room was silent, the air charged. Faces that had once betrayed indifference now displayed a variety of emotions: contemplation, reflection, perhaps something surprising, empathy. Then what's the point? A student pressed. We're all just trying to get through assignments. Why should your story matter? That question slammed into him, the wall forming again. But instead of retreating, he felt a spark. The reason is simple and profound. Our stories matter because we matter. When we share, we connect. When we connect, we become allies in this journey. I want to see you as multidimensional people, not just classmates, and I hope you see me the same way. In that moment, the pendulum swung. Tom grasped the shadows of his past, creating a bridge with his present. With each sentence, he felt the bond strengthen. The challenge wasn't merely individual, it was communal, threading their lives together in an unexpected tapestry. As their conversation evolved, he began to sense shifts, questioning gazes transformed into collaborative discussions. Was it possible he was beginning to transform viewpoints? The heavy air seemed to lift, revealing pockets of understanding among them. But just as hope flickered bright, a voice intruded, drenched in ridicule. And who exactly do you think you are? A hero for just speaking up? That's naive. Another student joined, their laughter echoing, puncturing the moment. For a heartbeat, despair surged. Tom's internal storm intensified, threatening to rip apart all he had strived to build. This could either dismantle his newfound voice or serve as fuel to rise above. As he faced the taunts, a realization swelled within him: this struggle for acceptance was an invitation to reinforce his narrative. Gratitude emerged for those who'd seen past the facade, and in that gratitude lay the determination to continue fighting. For every hostile voice, others waited in the wings for leadership, for wisdom. How would he respond? Pull away or dig deeper into the truths he had glimpsed? The room hung heavy with anticipation, and as doubt clawed at the back of his mind, a steely resolve anchored him. What role would he embrace, and how long could he endure this intense upheaval? Determination flared within, a message pulsing through him: I am more than what you see. And as the laughter faded momentarily, a new tension hung in the air, the question beckoning: would he now stand firm, inviting the challenge, or would fear cower him back into silence once more? The laughter receded, but its echo lingered, bitter and raw against the walls of Tom's mind. He felt the weight of their skepticism draw him back, a deep urge to retreat to familiar silence clawing at him. But in the midst of that turmoil, a flicker of inspiration ignited. What if this ridicule became a catalyst rather than a barrier? Could he reshuffle the script of his self-narrative and respond not merely as a target for scorn but as a man to be reckoned with? Tom took a deep breath, grounding himself in the present. The students were still watching, not just their eyes, but their ears were open. This was a ripe moment to forge a sense of solidarity that could elevate him from their unflattering perceptions. "Whether or not you think I'm a hero," Tom said, the steadiness of his voice surprising even himself, "in this moment, I'm a person standing in front of you, acknowledging something important. Yes, what I have to share may not mirror a hero's tale. But it is real, filled with lessons you might not expect." He leaned slightly forward, inviting attention rather than demanding it. "You see, my journey hasn't been about accolades or recognition. It's been about the unseen struggles that shape us, the humility in finding your voice among those often dismissed. To hear my story is simply to hear a truth, that every individual's experience carries wisdom worth sharing." A tentative tension filled the room, the prior laughter dissipating as uncertainty mingled with something more respectful. Tom sensed their curiosity trying to warp around the challenge he had posed, and he pressed on. "Let me tell you about the moments of power in the mundane. When I clean the floors in this school, I don't just see dirt and grime. I've learned to perceive a narrative beneath the surface, a narrative of those who tread here, of conversations held among classmates. And within each act of cleaning, I find an affirmation of my own truth, I reclaim each space for its potential." A hand shot up again, not in mockery but curiosity. "But that's just cleaning. How does that relate to us?" The question sent ripples of satisfaction through Tom. "Because we are all, in our own ways, cleaning up the narratives that others impose upon us. We're stripping away prejudices and misunderstandings that cloud our identities. In understanding our language, our histories, and yes, even our jobs, we begin to forge our values anew." As he paused, he searched for genuine connection in their eyes. His heart raced at the thought of vulnerability transforming into strength. "What I'm trying to say is that it's not just about the stories we tell but also about how we tell them. When I express myself in Mandarin, I connect more profoundly with my familial roots, but with you, my words are an invitation to discover intersections between us." The atmosphere shifted, judgment started to splinter. For the first time, he saw the students lean in, exchanging glances that betrayed animated discussions brewing beneath the surface. Where once there had only been disdain, he was now witnessing an intriguing mixture of curiosity and a budding willingness to engage. But just as the transformation seemed to take root, the skeptic shot back, eyes narrowed. "So you're saying sharing stories is supposed to somehow fix our perceptions? Isn't that a little naive?" Tom felt the familiar stir of anxiety threatening his newfound resolve. Yet the thought of yielding to fear felt more gut-wrenching than enduring a confrontation. Reframing the challenge became essential, a strategic golden opportunity for growth. "Naivety is often a disguise for fear of vulnerability," he answered, steel threading through his voice. "But belief in the power of storytelling can fuel change we might not have the stamina to effect alone. My hope isn't that we fix perceptions overnight. My hope is that we initiate a dialogue, forge pathways, and emerge with a truer understanding of one another, free from preconceived notions." As the bell rang, breaking the moment, Tom realized he still stood at a crossroads. The impending end of class loomed ominously, yet he could feel the tides of change beginning to sidle through the cracks of their former skepticism. Needling thoughts surfaced. How would this be perceived later? Would they reflect on this moment and see him differently? The tension held its breath, and somehow, he understood, he was a catalyst, igniting awareness. The potential for connection surged within him, promising more difficult dialogues ahead. But with that promise also simmered the daunting question that wouldn't be easily dismissed: how would he maintain the momentum sparked in this new phase of engagement, especially against voices that refused to evolve. The reflection beckoned him closer as the room emptied. Another realization thrummed under his skin: the tougher test awaited. Would he meet resistance with virtue, or would he instead shy away, retreating back into the shadows? Tom stepped into the hallway, the cacophony of students filtering out behind him, laughter and chatter washing over the space he had just conquered. He felt a mix of exhilaration and trepidation tinged with disbelief. What had just unfolded had felt like both a victory and an awakening. Yet, he knew the journey didn't end with a mere shift in perspective among those students. The real challenge lay in sustaining that fragile connection, a thread spun from shared understanding. His mind raced as he made his way to the janitor's closet, where a familiar sense of cleaning supplies greeted him. With every step, a layer of doubt peeled back, revealing a nascent sense of purpose. He began organizing the closet, gingerly aligning cleaning bottles and rags. It was a soothing gesture, a ritual that often steadied his racing thoughts. Yet this time, his actions felt emblematic of a broader goal. Could he be the agent of change, not only for himself but potentially for those young individuals eager to unlearn preconceived notions? As he cleaned, Tom's mind churned with ideas about how to leverage his recent experience. He envisioned future discussions, structured dialogues rather than discrete moments of speaking. This revelation was profound. He could serve as a bridge, connecting stories through careful guidance. But building that bridge would require crafting an environment that balanced openness with vulnerability. Realization dawned: he needed to be proactive, not just reactive. He imagined weekly sessions where students could share their narrative stories of struggle, triumph, laughter that might help in unpacking biases and breaking cycles of misunderstanding. The notion lit him up like a flame, igniting his imagination with visions of human connection blossoming in those very hallways filled with lingering echoes of ridicule. But as enthusiasm surged, so did the familiar specter of doubt. The skeptic's challenge reverberated in the back of his mind. Is this really a path to change, or just a distraction? The fears tried to crowd in, threatening to cloud his commitment with what-if scenarios of failure. He resolved to confront that shadow head-on. If he truly believed in the power of storytelling, why not harness it as a tool for growth? One student's challenge could also be seen as an invitation to reconsider what storytelling truly entailed. Thus, he decided to prepare a lesson plan for their next encounter, not a lecture, but an invitation crafted from his own experiences. He would explain how stories could evolve, how perspectives shift, and how mandates of us versus them could dissolve into a shared we. Yet, even as he envisioned it, another worry crept in: what if they didn't take him seriously? Just as the fear began to sink its claws deep into his resolve, one thought pierced through the darkness, a belief that had nurtured him through countless hardships: the possibility of transformation lies in the act of trying. He would embrace that possibility, forge ahead, and let the authenticity of his voice carry him through the barriers. With palpable urgency, he took out a notebook and started jotting down the themes he wanted to address. Narratives of resilience, he wrote, imagining the various paths people had walked to reach the present. The importance of listening, he added, considering how silences can weave profound narratives too. Suddenly, the bell rang once more, jarring him from his thoughts. The promise of the next class flickered like a spark in his veins. When would he engage them again? How would they respond? As he closed the notebook, energized by his plans, a realization washed over him: change often comes uninvited, a whisper demanding to be recognized. The next session wasn't merely going to be about sharing, it would be a stage where growth could fiercely unfold. Yet beneath that exhilaration simmered an unsettling tension. Would he step boldly into this role, encourage vulnerability among those who might scoff, and truly matter when the tides of skepticism surged again? Tom took a deep breath, for the moment had arrived to not only confront the skepticism but to embrace the role of the courageous storyteller. The clock was ticking, and opportunity loomed ahead, waiting for him to seize it. He stepped out of the closet, ready to face the next wave of voices. The dialogue was just beginning, and with it came the challenge of maintaining the courage that could ultimately change everything. Tom stood before the classroom door, heart pounding in his chest as the seconds stretched into an eternity. The bustling noises outside served as a stark reminder of the youth and potential waiting just beyond that entry. Each beat was a call to action, a reminder that he was not just a silent observer anymore but a participant in forging real connections. With a deep breath, he pushed the door open. The hum of conversation hushed to a curious silence as eyes turned toward him. Their faces reflected a mix of intrigue and skepticism, emotions he was all too familiar with. He could sense the doubt lingering in the air, the unspoken question of what a janitor could possibly share that was worth their attention. "Hey everyone," he began, trying to ground himself in the moment. "I know I'm not your usual teacher, but today I want to talk about stories, yours and mine." The room remained quiet, and he read the expressions carefully, searching for signs of engagement. He stepped closer to the center of the room, trying to command attention without overshadowing their unique identities. We all carry stories within us, some we wear proudly, others we hide. But what if we took a moment to uncover them? What if we dove into the narratives that shape who we are? A girl in the front row shifted uncomfortably, eyebrows knitted together. Tom recognized that look, skepticism blended with uncertainty. He pressed forward, urgency pulsating through his words. "I know what it's like to be judged, to feel like you're standing on the fringes. It took me years to realize my story had value." He paused, searching for the words that would bridge them. "I used to think I was invisible." He shared fragments of his journey, overcoming obstacles, moments of failure, and triumphs that felt like seismic shifts. He noted the glimmer of recognition in some faces, the flicker of empathy igniting in the collective space. He focused on the power of narrative, evolving his lesson into a dialogue, inviting them to reflect on their own stories and experiences. As he spoke, Tom's initial nerves began transforming into palpable excitement. But as the interactive session unfolded, he felt an unexpected pushback. A boy in the back raised his hand, brow furrowed, challenge palpable. "Why should we care about your stories? You're just the janitor. What do you know about our lives?" The words hit like a chill, reverberating in the air. Tom inhaled deeply, grasping the weight of the question, a critical moment that could shatter the fragile connection he had started to build. He faced the boy, understanding both his anger and vulnerability. "You're right, my life is different from yours. But that's exactly why I'm here. We all have different experiences that can teach us something. My goal is to help us find common ground." The room shifted. Students leaned in, curiosity edging their skepticism aside, the heartbeat of the dialogue re-established. He shared a story from his past time spent in a substantial financial struggle, detonating hopes and dreams. They listened, some nodded, some curled their lips in contemplation. Yet deep within, doubt loomed larger. Despite the warmth of emerging connections, Tom couldn't shake the fear of faltering, of revealing too much. These moments of vulnerability carried risks, leaving him open to judgment. But then he recalled his commitment to authenticity. If change was to flourish, it required embracing these intricacies even when it felt overwhelmingly uncomfortable. With a newfound zeal, Tom invited the students to share snippets of their own narratives, promising a safe space for expression. The words spilled forth, stories of hardship, resilience, and identity struggles emerged, weaving through the room like a tapestry. Now, though invigorated, he felt an undeniable tension threaded through the atmosphere. The unfinished nature of vulnerability hung precariously, waiting for the next step. Would they connect or retreat? With the class nearing its conclusion, he realized the dialogue was only the beginning. The risks he had taken transformed not just him but the students who shared their thoughts. As emotions flared and curiosity sparked, the opportunity for true engagement glimmered like a distant star. As the students left the room, a sense of anticipation glimmered within him. Would they be willing to return and dig deeper? The challenge lay ahead, not just in guiding them through shared stories, but in navigating the treacherous waters of doubt and vulnerability. The bell rang, echoing off the walls as if heralding the promise of more to come. Tom steeled himself for the next encounter, understanding that these young voices were just as crucial as his own. What would happen when the stories collided again? Would he be ready to face their truths? The next chapter awaited, bursting with potential yet shrouded in uncertainty. Tom awoke the next morning with a mix of excitement and trepidation clinging to him like a shadow. The class from the previous day had left him on a mental high, but it was tempered by the uncertainty of what lay ahead. Encouraging them to delve deeper into their narratives was one thing, doing it successfully was another challenge entirely. Would the students return, emboldened from their initial foray into vulnerability, or would they retreat into the comfort of silence and skepticism? As he arrived at the school, the brick facade seemed to echo his internal conflict. With each step toward the classroom, he replayed the students' stories in his mind. Their struggles, fears, and hopes mingled with his own past. How could he take those glimmers of deep connection and turn them into something lasting? Each time he thought about their raw honesty, a wave of determination surged. They needed a guide, a mentor willing to walk alongside them in those uncharted waters. Once inside the classroom, he set up the space with intention, arranging chairs in a circle, a setting that encouraged openness rather than the isolated rows of typical classrooms. He hoped this would create an atmosphere where stories could flow freely. After all, he had invited them to be vulnerable, and he needed to show them it was safe. When the students filed in, the mood was noticeably different. A curious eagerness replaced the earlier skepticism. Their eyes sparkled with a mix of nervousness and anticipation, as if they, too, now understood the weight their stories carried. "Hey everyone," Tom began, feeling the electric pull of their attention. "Before we dive in today, I just want to say how amazing it was to share yesterday. I saw courage in each of you, and I want you to know that your words matter." As he spoke, he noticed one girl in the back, her hands clenching and unclenching nervously. He decided to address that energy directly. "Let us talk about fears, what holds us back from sharing more of ourselves." The question hung in the air like a challenge, drawing the students into the tension of the moment. One boy finally broke the silence. "What if our stories don't matter? What if they're too boring?" His voice trembled slightly, exposing an underlying anxiety. Tom's heart twisted. That's just it. Every single story has worth. Boring or not, they shape who we are. He discussed the commonplace moments that defined his life, the day-to-day experiences that felt trivial yet rich with meaning. In doing so, he realized he was not just teaching, he was leading by example. As the dialogue flowed, students began to open up about their own insecurities and fears. An invisible thread woven between their stories shone brightly in the room. A gentle sense of shared humanity began to bind them together. The girl with clenched hands shared a memory of being bullied at her old school, her voice steadying with each word. Another student spoke about the pressures of parental expectations that felt suffocating. Vulnerability had bred vulnerability, and the more they let go of their fears, the more engaged they became. Yet, amid this burgeoning community, Tom felt internal tensions raging. He recalled his own past hesitations, the moments he had nearly given up on himself. Would he confront those memories when his own struggles mirrored theirs? As the bell rang, marking the end of the session, Tom could sense that this was merely the beginning. They had cracked open a door, but the true challenge lay behind it. What if we come back tomorrow and share our stories again? What if we make it a routine? What if we learn something we never expected? The students agreed, their excited voices bubbling, and Tom felt a flicker of hope. But as he walked home, the weight of the task ahead settled heavily on him. Could he sustain this momentum? Would he still have the courage to be vulnerable in the face of their truths? The unresolved tension gnawed at him. When he closed his front door, he looked in the mirror, searching for answers in his own eyes. The moment of truth had arrived, where he would need to face his past again. There was so much to uncover, both for him and the students who sought his guidance. And so, there hung a question, ominous yet alluring. What would he discover about himself when they pushed deeper into their narratives? The morning light filtered through the curtains, illuminating the small space where Tom sat, deep in thought. The mirror reflected not just his physical appearance but also the weariness of a man caught between past shadows and the possibility of newfound purpose. Each day had begun to feel like both an opportunity and a test of his ability to lead, and today was no exception. After breakfast, he grabbed his notebook, a tattered collection of pages filled with musings, ideas, and reflections from his own life. This had become his daily companion, a tangible reminder of his introspection and the growth he sought. It was time to confront the deeper aspects of his own story and clarify the way forward for his students. With each step toward the classroom, the familiar anxiety began to knot in his stomach again. He rehearsed his opening lines in his mind, the encouragement, the validation, but this was about more than just words. The stakes felt higher now. It was no longer just about facilitating their revelations, it was about his own. Once inside, he noticed the circle of chairs was still resonating with the echoes of yesterday's shared fears and hopes. The room felt different, charged with the promise of more profound explorations. He greeted the students as they trickled in, each familiar face a reminder of vulnerabilities bravely laid bare. Yet, a soft unease nagged at him. Could he truly guide them deeper when his own fears loomed so close? As he began, he addressed the elephant in the room. Let us start today by reflecting on what we've learned so far. What challenges have emerged? His voice was steady, but his mind raced with questions of authenticity and leadership. Silence enveloped the room for a moment. Then Ruth, the girl who had shared her bullying experience, spoke up. I still feel afraid to really dig deeper. What if there is something there that I don't want to see? Her eyes searched for reassurance, reflecting concerns that resonated far beyond the classroom. Tom felt the weight of her question pressing against his own unresolved issues. That fear is part of the journey. Sometimes the things we avoid are the ones that hold the keys to our growth. The words seemed to hang in the air, charged with meaning. In that moment, he understood he couldn't shy away from his own past if he expected to help them. How could he ask them to confront their demons if he wasn't willing to confront his? Maybe we can share our favorite stories and the hardest ones, another student suggested, apprehensive yet brave. The ones that cut the deepest. Encouraged by the evolving dynamics, Tom decided to take a risky step. I'll go first, he ventured, heart drumming in his chest as he exposed a chapter of his life that still haunted him, the moment he felt lost, when disappointment had clouded his vision, and how he almost let it define him. I understand the fear of sharing because I've been there. But it's through confronting those fears that we can find our strength. As he spoke, he felt a surprising release of tension. The act of vulnerability bred a new air of trust. The students leaned forward, their expressions shifting from apprehension to curiosity. One by one, they began sharing their favorite moments of joy, but also their deepest fears and regrets. Each story unveiled layers of resilience that surprised them, as well as Tom. He saw glimpses of transformation in them, absorbing the weight of their shared experiences. Understanding that everyone was grappling with emotional scars made him feel less alone. A growing sense of purpose ignited within him. This was more than just a teaching moment, it was a poignant dance of healing. But as the session drew to a close, a persistent notion loomed in Tom's mind. The real challenge lay ahead. What would happen if they encountered stories too painful to share or truths too difficult to face? The questions compelled him to dig deeper, not only into their narratives but into his own. Today had been enlightening, but it had also opened new wounds, ones he wasn't sure he was prepared to confront. As he left the classroom, the uncertainty of the next session hung heavy. How far could they delve into the depths of personal truth before it became overwhelming? The journey ahead was laden with perilous potential, a landscape where fear could either shatter them or pave the way for healing. And deep down, Tom understood the moment was fast approaching when he would have to stand resolute against the darkness of his past in order to guide them forward. Tom stood before the familiar classroom door once again, the vibrant chatter of students filtering in around him. His heart pounded, a drum signaling the burgeoning choir of voices eager for connection. Today wasn't just another class, it was a decisive moment, a culmination of everything he had embraced over the past few weeks. With a sharp breath, he pushed the door open, stepping into a space alive with potential. "Good morning, everyone," he said, meeting the gazes of eager faces. The growing comfort of shared stories had transformed the atmosphere from skepticism to a fragile yet palpable sense of community. Today, I want us to explore not just the narratives that tether us to our burdens, but those that empower us to rise beyond them. The students settled into their chairs, eyes locking onto him with a mix of anticipation and apprehension. Tom could sense their readiness not just for personal revelations, but for a deeper engagement with their identities. This was his moment to reflect on the profound growth he had taken, and more importantly, to guide them to a place of empowerment. "Let us discuss our stories of resilience," Tom suggested. "What sacrifices did you make, and how did you overcome those moments?" He watched as hands began to rise, one after another, a sign that their vulnerabilities had transformed into actionable courage. Ruth, the girl whose candidness had sparked so many discussions, spoke up first. "I didn't realize that opening up would feel so liberating. But I learned that the stories I thought were burdens were actually bridges to deeper connections." Her words echoed a truth Tom had discovered within himself. Their conversations unfurled like petals, revealing insights layered in shared experiences. Each student emerged with fragments of their past stories of overcoming bullying, academic pressures, family expectations, and cultural struggles that felt like burdens waiting to be shed. In the midst of their mirror reflections, Tom couldn't help but notice how significantly he had evolved. In the early days of their engagement, he had fought against his own fears of inadequacy. Now, he stood solidly in his role, a leader folded into the very fabric of the classroom. With mastery, he framed these discussions, guiding them to uncover the profound lessons within their narratives. He spoke with conviction, emphasizing, "Every time you voice your truth, you dismantle barriers not just within yourself, but between us all. This is how relationships form. We learn to empathize and understand just how interconnected our lives truly are." As the discussions deepened, Tom felt a swelling sense of fulfillment. They weren't just sharing words, they were weaving a tapestry of shared humanity that resonated beyond the confines of the classroom. Yet, as he watched their faces brighten with realization, a part of him lingered on a precipice of vulnerability. How deeply could this exploration of pain catalyze healing? What would happen when they began to confront memories that could unravel them? In an inspired moment, Tom shifted his approach. "Let us try something different. I'd like each of you to write a letter either to your past self or to the person who hurt you most. Be honest. You can choose whether or not to share it. This exercise is meant to empower you and reclaim your narratives." As he spoke, he felt the air shift, laden with uncertainty and trepidation. He understood that confronting the past could both invoke fear and facilitate growth. But standing before them now, he felt an undeniable strength. His own past had transformed into the very foundation that allowed him to navigate their present. The minutes turned to moments as pens scratched against paper, emotion sweeping the room. Students' expressions shifted from furrowed brows to contemplative resolve, their stories gaining voice through silent letters they might someday share. With time drawing near, Tom guided them toward closure. "Look at what you've created today. Every letter contains powerful emotions, stories that deserve to be carried forward. You didn't just write narratives, you forged connections to your strength. Embrace that strength, it's a part of you." As the session came to an end, students began to collaborate to share and discuss their letters, their faces glowing with newfound confidence. The shy glances from weeks before had blossomed into deep conversations, offering solidarity in struggles once thought too heavy to bear alone. When the bell rang, signaling dismissal, what echoed within the room felt profoundly different. It was a symphony resonating with growth and recognition. Tom stood at the front, reflecting on how far he'd come, the transformation he had fostered not just in himself, but in each of them. Leaving the classroom, he walked down the corridor with solid confidence. The man who had once feared his voice now firmly established as a guide. "Thank you, Tom," came a voice from behind, interrupting his thoughts, and causing him to pause. It was Dr. Chen, who had witnessed the metamorphosis unfold. "What you have cultivated here is more than just a class. You've created a space where empathy and understanding can thrive." Tom smiled, humility radiating from him. This acknowledgement and external validation of his journey felt like a warm embrace. He had conquered not only the perceived boundaries of his identity but had also established his place as a valued leader within the academic community. The journey had not culminated in isolation. Each word exchanged and every story shared had extended an invitation to understand the potential for profound transformation. And, for that, Tom was deeply satisfied. He had not only achieved a breakthrough personally, but he had woven himself into the fabric of something much larger, something potent enough to encourage others to embrace their voice. As he stepped into the sunlight, he felt lighter, as if unshackled from past constraints. He had become not just a participant in this academic world but an integral thread within it, mastering the delicate art of connection. In that moment of clarity, he understood that every step taken had led him to this achievement. He had transcended his role as a janitor, emerging as a mentor, a facilitator, and ultimately, a beacon of encouragement. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss these exclusive emotional stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help more people find inspiration. Comment your reactions and theories about this incredible ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformative journey.